Ghawar, Abqaiq, Ras Tanura. Three names that most people have never heard. Three sites that between them produce more oil than most countries on Earth. And overnight, Iranian drones targeted all three simultaneously. Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Defense confirmed the attacks. Interceptions were reported, but the missiles reached their destination. Here is what those three names actually mean for every person on this planet. Ghawar is the largest conventional oil field ever discovered. It has been producing for over 70 years and still accounts for a significant portion of Saudi Arabia's daily output. Abqaiq is the world's largest oil processing facility, the single plant through which the majority of Saudi crude passes before it enters global markets. Ras Tanura is one of the largest oil export terminals on Earth. These are not military targets. These are the physical infrastructure through which the world's energy supply moves. The GCC Secretary-General stated today that Iran's actions, the attacks, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and now the strikes on Gulf energy infrastructure, have overcome all red lines. That phrase, all red lines, is not diplomatic language. It is the language of an alliance that has reached the end of the framework it was operating within. Now place that development alongside what the United States said today. Washington threatened Iran directly accept defeat or be hit harder than ever before. Not harder than last week, harder than ever before. In a conflict that has already seen 10,000 American strikes inside Iran in 26 days. Iran's response was immediate. Tehran rejected the talks, rejected the 15-point American plan as maximalist, and pledged to continue retaliating. So what does accept defeat actually mean to a country that has now fired missiles at Israel 8 times in a single day, struck a nuclear research city, hit a nuclear power plant, and targeted the Gulf's 3 most critical oil facilities? Wrong pin means something that no statement from Washington has yet defined in terms that the operational record supports. The humanitarian dimension of what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz right now deserves its own examination, because it is the part of this conflict that the energy market analysis consistently obscures. Approximately 2,000 vessels are stranded in the strait. 20,000 seafarers, human beings, crew members with families, caught in the crossfire of a conflict they had no part in starting and no ability to exit. Iran announced that non-hostile ships may transit if they coordinate with Iranian authorities. One tanker captain who received safe passage described the reality on the ground. One party says it will allow passage, but the conditions depend on factors that too many parties control simultaneously. The strait is not open. It is conditionally permeable, on terms set by one of the parties in an active war, and the insurance market has already made its own assessment. Transiting the Strait of Hormuz is described by shipping analysts as completely off the charts for the rest of 2026. The diplomatic picture that is developing in parallel with the military one is the most structurally complicated element of this conflict at this stage. Pakistan offered to host negotiations. Neither Washington nor Tehran publicly responded. Egypt, Turkey, and Pakistan are described as relaying messages between the parties through back channels that neither side will acknowledge as negotiations. NPR confirmed that back-channel efforts are active. Iran's own foreign ministry spokesperson acknowledged responding to requests through intermediaries of friendly countries, while simultaneously denying that any negotiations are taking place. That is not a contradiction. It is a precise description of a situation where both sides need an exit, but neither side can be the first to call it that. And Israel has made its own position clear. Israel is not part of U.S.-Iran talks. Military operations will continue until Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities are fully and permanently eliminated. Netanyahu said, Trump believes there is an opportunity to convert military gains into an agreement. But Netanyahu also said, Israel will continue striking Iran and Lebanon, regardless of whatever that agreement looks like. 2 allies, 1 war, 2 completely different definitions of what ending it means. and no public framework that reconciles them. The economic consequences of the Saudi oil field strikes will reach global markets when trading opens tomorrow. Oil prices had fallen 6% earlier this week on hopes of de-escalation. Brent crude had retreated toward $94. That retreat was built on the assumption that back-channel communication was moving toward something that resembled an exit. Targeting Ghawar, Abqaiq, and Ras Tanura in a single night is not compatible with that assumption. The International Energy Agency described this conflict last week as worse than both 1970s energy crises combined. That assessment was made before Iranian forces targeted the three facilities that sit at the center of Saudi Arabia's entire export architecture. The repricing that follows that development in tomorrow's market session will not move in the direction that this week's brief optimism suggested. On day 27 of a conflict designed to last 72 hours, the operational picture and the diplomatic picture are moving in opposite directions simultaneously. Back channels are active, messages are being relayed. Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey are all involved. And on the same day that those messages are moving, Iranian drones targeted the world's largest oil processing facility and the largest oil field ever discovered. The gap between the diplomatic track and the military track is not narrowing, it is widening, and the side that widens it further tonight determines what tomorrow looks like for global energy markets, for the 20,000 seafarers stranded in the Strait, and for the populations across the Gulf who woke up this morning to news that the infrastructure their governments have spent decades building is now inside the targeting perimeter of this conflict. Evidence first, analysis second. You decide what it means. Subscribe and turn on notifications when markets open tomorrow and price in the Saudi oil field strikes, when Iran's next wave clarifies whether tonight was a one-time signal or the opening of a new targeting doctrine, when the back-channel framework either produces a response or collapses under the weight of what happened tonight. The analysis will be here.